Time has not yet so dried this blood of mine.
The stage is part of the ancient city of thieves.
I alone who got all the others. 1 minute longer with you and I don't know what I might do.
You will remember me.
If they have to put the word Canadian, I would rather them say William Hutt, the Canadian actor, rather than William Hutt, a Canadian actor.
When you meet a master like Bill Hutt, and he is a master, there's something reverential in his presence.
It's impossible to underplay William Hutt. So he's a dangerous fellow on the stage.
William Hutt has appeared in more Shakespearean plays than any other leading actor in the world. For 39 years, he has dominated one stage, the Stratford Festival of Canada. At the age of 85, William Hutt is in rehearsal for his farewell performance. And how poetic, how perfect, that he has chosen the Tempest as the deck, so to speak, from which to wave goodbye.
People would ask me, why did you choose the Tempest? And I would say, well, since I've spent so many years with this playwright who traditionally said his goodbye with the Tempest, not comparing myself to Shakespeare in any way, but why shouldn't I, after all these years spent in his world, use one of his plays to say my goodbye?
As news of the war in Europe, all of it bad, reached Canada, William Hutt enlisted. It was July 1941, and he was 21 years old. He joined a medical unit, the 7th Light Field Ambulance, based out of Toronto.
When Bill was growing up, he was growing up in a family of men who had been to war, and they themselves hadn't finished it. And when the war broke out, the Second World War broke out, and his brother signed up, it was the thing for young men to do.
And when it came to the war, two things informed my decision. I was not in a mood to carry a gun and shoot somebody. I just was not, that was not my, I couldn't do it. I just simply could not do it. But I did want to do something towards the war effort because I believed the war was just and necessary. The second thing was that my brother had already joined the Army, a medical unit that was destined to go overseas, and I preferred to go overseas with my brother. My relationship with my brother was at its best and most flowering when we were both overseas together. My father wrote the most wonderful letter that my brother and I took overseas with us. It was a beautiful thing he wrote, full of just love for his two sons. My dear, dear boys, could I sustain a balance of my deep emotions and affection for you both, these words would be spoken to you and not written, praying so fervently and earnestly that God's blessing might rest upon you and preserve your body and soul each hour of the day while you are away from us, bound to your God, your country, your belief in all that is decent and wholesome in life, your conscience. I close with the bestowal of all that I can give you, my dear, dear boys, my richest and most earnest blessing for your safe return and my fondest love. Ever affectionately, Dad.
Here at last was a statement of unconditional and undisguised love. It was virtually the only solace in the day-to-day life of a lonely and disdainful young man.
The first 2 years was very ugly. I hated it. All that regimentation I resented bitterly. I didn't make any friends the first couple of years at all. I was just very distant and standoffish. And after the first 2 years, I realized that, this war's not going to end very soon. I better start talking to people and making some friends. So I did. By the end of the war, I felt much more comfortable in the comrade department.
Then came one of those events which become a kind of defining moment in your life. As outlined here in his war diary, Hutt was offered a mission which quite changed the way his fellow soldiers saw him.
It didn't seem to be any big deal, basically because, you don't really fully realize the danger that's involved.
The mission was this. Somebody, a volunteer, was called upon to thread his way across a heavily mined riverbank and establish a safe zone where casualties could be treated. No one knew where the mines were.
So I was a corporal at the time, and I felt I should maybe fulfill my duty, and rather plaintively said, I'll go, Captain. Strangely enough, I don't remember being terrified at all. I just remember saying, what the hell, if I blow up, I blow up.
For this act of casual bravery, as he might describe it, William Hutt received the highest commendation the Army could award him, the Military Medal. Back in Toronto, William Hutt took advantage of a war veteran scholarship to go to university. Student life at U of T had a pleasant harmlessness to it, but it was the amateur theatrical productions at Hart House, being in a play, that impassioned him. For the second time, life had sent him the right man at the right time, the director Robert Gill.
Gill turned out to be exactly the right kind of director for young hopefuls. David Gardner, Kate Reed, Charmian King, we were all at university at the same time. And we all said we want to go into theater because Bob Gill sort of inspired us. The irony, of course, there wasn't any theater to go into, but that didn't seem to bother us very much.
A few turns on stage, a few rounds of energetic applause, and there was no other profession that Hutt even considered. He was going to be an actor. Never mind that there wasn't a professional theater company in the whole country.
Then, as the 40s disappeared into the 50s, in existence was an organization in Ottawa called the Canadian Repertory Theatre. I remember getting 2 or 3 seasons in Ottawa, along with people like Chris Plummer. Bill Shatner was an early member of the company. There were those theaters to go into, but it didn't occupy your entire year. In between theatrical jobs, I would work for an organization in Toronto called Clean Hall. I would go into people's houses and clean their rugs and their Chesterfields. And then the guy who owned the company was wonderfully generous. As soon as another offer came along, he would say, go, take it, and when it's finished, come back and clean the Chesterfields again. After I started in Stratford, he would come to see me in Stratford and look very proud that he started me off. Sweet man he was.
In the early 50s, the small town of Stratford, Ontario, was on the verge of hosting a major theater company dedicated to the production of Shakespearean plays. It was the first of its kind in North America. When William Hutt was asked to join, talk about being in the right place at the right time, he had to pull out a map to find out where exactly Stratford was.
And suddenly Canada was put on the map, and the New York Times came up, and Herald Tribune, and the London papers from England came and recognized it as an international hotspot for classic theater. And suddenly everybody began to take their actors and their artists more seriously in this country and realized there was somewhere to go.
Stars from the London stage and Broadway were flown into Stratford, and in what seemed like weeks, the fledgling company presented Richard III under a canvas tent.
I played Sir Robert Bracken.